Hi, I'm John Devore. Welcome to the channel. And welcome to the final installment of my conversation with Ken Micallef, the Jazz Vinyl Audiophile. And in this final chapter, we talk about jazz. Jazz on records, jazz in the US and jazz in general, and a few other things. Basically, just sort of wrap it all up. So I will keep it brief. Thank you very much for watching and enjoy chapter 3. Bye.
It is hard for jazz musicians because there's all this dead people music being reissued endlessly.
Right.
And and
right, the
and
legacy jazz.
And I get really tired of the label, especially Columbia. They choose who they want to make a dead star out of. Miles Davis is endlessly returned, but they totally ignore Duke Ellington. They've reissued like maybe 2 Duke Ellington records.
Right, which is weird.
Criminal.
Yeah.
It's insane. I mean,
but they know who's going to sell more.
But they can kind of...
Because some of Ellington's music is, I mean, it's not exactly challenging, but it's not as catchy as Miles Davis's songs. Well, at least like pre-Bitches Brew.
I guess. I mean, I feel like Miles, they have more of a dangerous figure to work with. Duke Ellington is always this smiling figure. He doesn't quite fit in the culture the same way.
But if like Black, Brown, and Beige, I mean, a lot of his music is not just the smiling...
Oh, no.
Right. I mean, it's like it's complex deep. And important.
Beautiful.
And it's like lots of protest in there. Stuff with with Marian Anderson and amazing
and
music.
Just like Indigo's just some of the most beautiful music you could ever hear.
Right.
And I do think if they would at least try, Columbia could I guarantee if they
could raise his profile.
Then you'd see some documentary about him. You know, there's a documentary about Ella on Netflix. It's good material, but it's like compared to like what happened to Miss Simone or whatever, it's shit. The amount of care.
I saw the Simone one. I never saw the Ella one.
That's great. The Ella one is like a high school video by comparison. Just jazz. One of my beefs on my channel I talk about is jazz just gets shit on in America. And you say you think people know what jazz is, but I don't think they do know. I think if anybody heard beyond the idea of crazy free jazz improvisation.
Right. So that I think we got cut off. So yeah. So you're convinced that people really
don't know even what jazz is. They don't know who Louis Armstrong is. Right. They don't know who Duke or... They might know who Miles is because he's sort of in the culture. Right. Or John Coltrane, they know who he is because he's in the culture. But I don't think they understand the breadth of jazz, that it came out of dance music and swing music and how it's...
And how it evolved. They think of jazz as a sort of a whole thing. They think of jazz as that scary stuff where everyone's improvising.
Right.
But so what we were saying that I think we got cut off is that, but I think if you played somebody, Billie Holiday, Willow Weep, or, one of the Ella and Louis tracks, they're so enjoyable and so sort of addictive and delicious and non-threatening in a way. I mean, obviously Willow Weep or Strange Fruit is incredibly threatening in this sort of complex inner way.
Yeah.
But they're musically so beautiful and approachable. When they say that they don't like jazz or they don't get jazz, it's because they're not considering that music as jazz.
Yeah, perhaps you're right. I mean, I
feel like they think of jazz as the scary free jazz.
Yeah, I think a lot of women think of Joni Mitchell in the same breath. They think of Ella or Nina Simone.
Yeah.
Or Sarah Vaughan is eternally popular, even though she doesn't really do it for me. But I guess I mean more the...
Me too. I'm like, the
Sarah Vaughan is just...
She has an incredible voice, but I never liked her versions of anything.
Freaking tremolo or vibrato, just want to run away from it. So people don't know who is... one thing that nobody plays anymore are slow tempos, like Eddie Lockjaw Davis or Ben Webster. Those guys... I mean, if you just went through the saxophone... Coleman Hawkins still sounds incredibly contemporary to me.
Yeah.
I mean, if... Some dude who has Peter Jackson should make a video about the great American tenor saxophonist, because it's an amazing wealth of variety and grooves and tempos, party music, somber music.
Right.
Yeah, I just I have my channel. I try to have some jazz awareness, because I think the average American, outside of pop figures, which Billie Holiday, Ella sort of are, don't know the wealth of jazz.
Right. But they think of Louis Armstrong and they think of really early, they think of sort of the Dixieland style jazz.
Right.
They don't think about his later stuff.
Which is amazing stuff. I mean, that's why jazz gets much more respect in Europe than it does here.
Yeah, we left it behind when rock replaced it. Rock replaced it as popular music.
That's right. I mean, after the fusion bands and a lot of musicians went to Europe and never came back.
Right.
Alvin Queen never came back. And
well, the fusion bands, they can stay in Europe. I mean,
I love Moxie. That's what kind of brought me into jazz, really.
No, I love that stuff too, but it's like, it's Yeah, for me, it does not have the gravity of what I consider jazz. And here I am being opinionated
Right.
and anti one little part of jazz, and that's a terrible thing, and I shouldn't be that way.
Well, it's only about 5 albums, really. I mean, really. And there's guys doing prog rock.
Fusion? Well, like
Yeah.
Billy Cobham, and there was a lot of stuff for a while there.
I think of the first 2 Mahavishnu records, the first 3 Billy Cobham records.
The Return to Forever with Stanley Clarke
First
and all
3 or
those
4
things, yeah.
before Di
Romantic
Meola came
Warrior,
on.
Yeah,
that's the
and
last
also Di
one.
Meola, though. I mean, that's all fusion, all that stuff.
Well, but I think
and,
that's kind of worthless in a way. Even
see, that's how I see. Yeah, so you're differentiating between good fusion and annoying.
Yeah, there's not that much of it. I mean, it went off
what
the
about
rails.
Weather Report? Like,
Why Weather Report? I mean, there's another group
right.
that CBS owns all that music.
Right.
I mean, Weather Report. I mean, what's interesting to me is now you're seeing a lot of young black artists, like Justin Brown has a band. Basically, sounds like George Duke and Weather Report.
Right.
All these young black guys are sourcing this music. I'm not even sure they know they're sourcing it. I mean, they're using
most of them probably are. Kamasi Washington and all
well,
that
yeah,
stuff.
well,
like
he's
sort of big, complex.
He's more of a free jazz guy. Don't get me started on that guy. But I mean, they're sourcing. They use electric pianos. Like this is the guy Big Yuki. He plays all electric pianos. They brought that sound back, and just the way, like almost a psychedelic thing, like the George Duke records, like the Aura Will Prevail, and I forgot one
Really,
else.
I know the Duke Clark Project stuff. I don't know the
like that Live Mother for You is great. To me, it's only about 10 records that constitute really good fusion. Then it's all crap after that. And then,
I mean, Weather Report by themselves are more than 10 records.
Well,
or do you not consider that fusion?
I don't for some reason, because those guys.
But I think it is. It's right. It's definitely.
It is, but the great thing to me, the reason why it's only 10 albums on their records is all those guys could play straight ahead jazz long before they played fusion. Billy Cobham played with Horace Silver, so they're real jazz musicians. But then you had guys who were only fusion musicians. A lot of stuff.
That's like the Dave Weckl era.
I like Dave. Yeah, that stuff is horrible. I mean, he's a great drummer, but it's like music to go watch tennis by. Hey, wow. And they're still playing
tennis.
And those guys, Dave Weckl, still playing the same exact music.
I know. Yeah,
it's
Dave Weckl. For me, Dave Weckl, he took all of the innovation that Steve Gadd brought and sort of homogenized it.
And no argument from me there. Because Steve Gadd is phenomenal, but he's just a great musician.
Hit or miss, but phenomenal. Yeah. When he hit, whoa, man, nobody could touch him. All that, I mean, all that stuff he did for pop music in the 70s, Ricky Lee Jones and Paul Simon.
Leo Sayer, so many amazing things.
Those beats
you could
changed, like they did what Bonham did to rock. They changed
you could pick it out on a small radio, his grooves, because they were just so incredible.
Yeah, nuts.
I'll tell you
all the African rhythms and stuff.
I'll tell you my Steve Gadd story. When I first came to the city, I studied at Drummers Collective for 2 years, and to pay for it, I worked the front desk sometimes. And he came in once to do a seminar,
like a master class.
Yeah, and I was like, "Wow, Steve Gadd." I said, "How does it feel to be the #1 session drummer in the world?" He said, "Man, I'm just trying to get my wife back." He was that.
Ouch.
He was that real and no jive and just.
Right.
I was like, "Wow." Me, a stranger, how he could be just so in the moment and real, which is how his drumming was. Then I saw him a couple years later on Fifth Avenue in some little coffee shop, and he was with his wife, and he was really happy again. So it was nice.
That's amazing. That's a great story.
I mean, that was really something.
Because he got into drugs and alcohol, I guess, and sort of vanished for a while, and then kind of came back in Japan or something, and then sort of made it back to some extent.
He had to have nose surgery, just like Stephen Stills, because he did so much
coke. Yeah,
right.
That's right. But, that was the 80s, 70s, 80s. Yeah.
I mean, he's done a bunch of that New York fusion, which I can enjoy, but some of it's
like the Gadd Gang. I never liked it. Yeah.
I mean, even like the Brecker brothers, some of it's good, some of it's really horrible.
Yeah, some of it is so GRP.
Yeah, and Clive Davis is pushing them to have hits. But but even stuff like that, and Kenny G gives people the wrong idea of what jazz actually is.
Right.
Kenny G,
Well, Kenny G will be if there's somebody you're talking to and they only have one jazz record, it's going to be either KOB or Kenny G, right? That's it. Those are the only two. If they only have one jazz record, it's going to be one of those.
That's a good equation. Yeah, right. It's your KOB or your KG. Yeah, it seems that way. And but this focus among jazz people, vinyl collectors, they don't have expansive. They're not you're always searching. You always find incredible music, But a lot of people they want to get their 20th copy of KOB. I don't get it.
I think those are the people who don't. I think people who don't have a really expansive collection, and I'm not talking about just why don't they have hundreds or thousands of records,
Right.
but people who have, a dozen KOBs would rather have more different records, but they don't know. They're afraid. I think it's people are afraid of what they don't know, and a lot of people don't know jazz. A lot of people don't know classical. You're asking me to recommend a bunch of classical records.
Right.
I'm happy to do that. I would love to do that to everyone, to get people to.
You should do that on your channel.
Get into classical. Well, I had my volume 1 of Bach to get people in. I'm going to do at least 3 Bach videos.
Oh wow, that'd be
Bach
amazing.
is major.
Right.
He's like very fundamental.
Huh.
He's the Ringo Starr of classical music. That's sort of a joke, but
No, who did I hear just say recently they play Bach every morning? It was on a TV show.
So many real musicians play Bach.
They play Bach when they get up in the morning.
Yeah, as a warm up, because Bach has to for Bach to work with all of its sort of counterpoint and it has to be done right. And if it's right, it's like it meshes and it just goes. It's like the gears of a watch.
Huh.
They mesh and they're lubed, and then the watch tells time. It's like, so I can see why people would sort of want to get their settings correct by playing Bach and then go and do whatever they're going to do.
So it's more than the Goldberg variations, which is mostly what I know about Bach.
Yeah, I mean those are amazing.
They are
the Goldberg
amazing.
variations are amazing, but
Right.
the video I did was Brandenburg's 3, Brandenburg concertos. But yeah, no, Bach has an enormous body of work, and all of it is really very profound music.
Huh.
But yeah, I'll give you definitely some Bach recommendations.
Yeah, I mean, I guess people are afraid. People do come into my Jazz Vinyl Lovers group to hear about other jazz.
Like, what should I get? Yeah.
And there are people. We have people like Daniel Van Elge and Scott Baldwin who post amazing old records.
Yeah,
and
cool
then
stuff.
And we also have people who do post more modern jazz on vinyl, like Matthew Halsell and Shabaka Hutchings and all that. Nubia Garcia, that whole thing coming out of the UK, which is, a lot of that's really, really great. All the stuff on the Brownswood recording label, the Giles Peterson thing. I do jazz videos, and my friend Dan does it. There's not a whole lot of people like the critic dads, like the Gary Giddens, the Nate Chinnons. They ignore YouTube.
Yeah.
YouTube that's the future, really.
Yeah, well, that's where you're going to get the most new people to hear what you're saying,
right?
Versus people who are just looking for jazz criticism and will read about it.
I mean, this to me, and not to keep doing this, but Giovanni Russello posted his 20 greatest jazz records of the year. When I looked at Instagram, there were only 20 likes. Wow. He's the jazz critic for the New York Times. It's just and most all my friends, or I know a lot of jazz people on Instagram. It's just people
Nobody's paying attention.
They're not paying attention. But that's why I'm reviewing jazz CDs on a vinyl channel. So.
Good for you. All formats for me.
That's right. Even cassettes.
I love cassettes.
I don't understand that, but you got a bunch of 45s over there. John
45s, 78s.
John has incredible 78s. I've never heard 78 sound like this. I mean, it sounded great when I heard it at Jonathan Halpern's house in Forest Hills years ago. But to hear these on this system, it's just like a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
We can come back again. It'll be twice a lifetime.
Thank you. You could you could advertise and charge people to come in and listen.
Oh man,
get them off the plane.
Jonathan and I actually did the show. Actually, the first time I ever heard the preamp that I have was at CES in Vegas, and we were spinning 78s the whole time.
When was that?
2009, maybe.
Wow.
2000. It was when I introduced the 9s.
Wow.
It was
78
amazing.
Does something I've never heard before.
Yeah.
It's just astounding. Soundstage. It's so immediate and live sounding through this system. I mean, I reviewed a turntable that came with a 78 styles and a different belt. Not quite the same.
No, it's not the same. No, you can't.
I was like,
it's got to be really 478s. You can't you can't like adapt.
Yeah.
A regular stereo.
If anything, it just brought out all the worst qualities. You could really hear the noise.
Yeah.
I mean, with this EMP,
it's not tracking any of the right stuff.
Yeah, it was just kind of like, really?
Yeah.
Luckily, I just borrowed them.
Ken, this has been awesome. I totally appreciate this.
I appreciate it too.
I am definitely going to cut this into a bunch of little sections, but thanks so much. Tons of knowledge.
My pleasure.
I'm sure there's tons more knowledge in there that maybe we'll fish out at another time.
I appreciate you asking me. It's an honor to be on your channel.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you at the next video.